We would be honored if you would join us.
We are joined by our very special guest, Silver 5150. And if you have not checked out the first two parts of this episode, you really need to go do so right now, okay? Because the content, the topics that we've discussed, and the topics, the information that we've covered is entertaining, valuable, and you'd expect nothing less from Silver 5150. How are you doing today, sir?
We are doing pretty good over here on the West Coast, California. We got our first winter day today, and we are making the most out of it.
Right, awesome. And how are you doing today, Silver Conundrum?
Oh man, I'm so excited. After our last episode, I am just stoked about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Please note the disclaimer that Expat Stacker and Silver Conundrum are not financial advisors or experts. Investing is risky and comes with the chance that you could lose money. So talk to a licensed professional before making any decisions about what to do with your money. This video and all of the contents on our channels is for entertainment and educational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. All right, so I'm coming to you guys from the future over here in South Korea for anybody who is new to the Silvercast. And yeah, we in the first part of the episode, we introduced Silver 5150. In the second part, we discussed industrial demand drivers for precious metals. And in this part, we're going to be discussing different ways of acquiring precious metals, including credit.
Ooh.
Yeah. By the way, guys, Silver 5150 did an excellent series of videos about using credit to acquire silver and other precious metals. And he talks about himself as an example. And I'll go ahead and come out and say it right now that I have also used credit to acquire precious metals. Now, you'll hear a lot of people say, on stacking channels, like, okay, I'm not giving financial advice. Now let me give you some advice. Don't use credit, right? So,
yeah, don't do it at all. If you just don't do it unless you know what the hell you're doing. Simple.
Right? So I always gotta laugh where, like, I mean, we have to say we're not giving advice, and we're really not. We're not telling you what to do or what not to do. We're just having a discussion, and we hope it's educational. But it is kind of funny. I mean, I've literally heard people say, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not getting advice. And then like 2 minutes later, they say, I would advise you to do this. You know?
Bingo.
But so you got to be careful. It's not just, you're not off the hook with that statement. But really, we're not telling you what to do, what not to do. We're just exploring an idea because I feel like, you know, in a lot of stacking channels, like it really is like credit is just like the worst evil thing in the world, and we shouldn't even think about it, you know. But we do want to discuss that because credit does have a role. So Silver 5150, I mean, in the videos that I saw, you explained it brilliantly. So what role, what purpose can credit have in acquiring precious metals? Can you explain that?
Sure. Just in a nutshell, basically what you have to understand, the game we're playing is a race against time. As a stacker, you're racing against the possible conclusion of the silver and, you know, the precious metals markets, either by means of, you know, diminished inventories or a pricing scheme that is questionable that goes up in a puff of smoke. So these are the types of things that you're up against. You're up against the clock, the possible, you know, economic collapse or reset that people talk about all the time. So when you are dealing with time-sensitive, you know, issues in this stacking endeavor, you want to have time sensitive devices that can help you take advantage of that. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about leverage. So what credit does is it allows you to move the clock around, either project out paying for an item later on, which means, you're in the process of earning, but maybe, we'd be better off if you could just hold off for a bit, but you want to acquire the metal now because the price point's good. We've got the spot price that we're always dealing with. And we look at these charts, we look at these trends, and we see where the highs and lows are. You want the price higher if you've already accumulated, and you want to be able to maybe sell some to the market to change some things in your life. But if you're in the accumulation phase, you're looking for these low points on silver. Give you an example. For probably 4 years, I stacked, and I did not use credit. I stacked on a debit budget. But I told myself throughout that entire time, because I had never seen prices lower than, say, $18, $17 maybe. I said, well, if silver ever goes below $14, then I'm going to start using credit. So I set myself a condition and a standard in order to break that forbidden seal there. And so that was my standard back when spot prices were lower. For today, it could be something like, well, if silver goes below $22 an ounce, I have been using credit, but I'm going to do it. You have to figure out, if it's going to be cost effective for you long term, knowing that silver is going to trend upwards, to put yourself in that position, because you want to make sure that you come out on top with your cost price average, meaning what you paid per ounce for an ounce of silver, for example. So if you move into the world of credit, you want to make sure that you are going to benefit from the use of it. The important thing about credit is it allows you to manipulate time, but not price. There's actually a premium using credit on the price. And so you want to be careful of that, mindful of that. So it requires a lot of math to use credit. But understand, when you use credit for whatever reason, retailers, especially the big online retailers, they show favorability to that because they are paid instantly in that credit system. Whereas with a debit system, it takes some time to verify e-check and all this stuff, and so for them it's inconvenient, and so you wait longer and you get a lower price, but they're happy when they get that credit money in. So in my particular case, I use credit to take advantage of what would be unreasonably low spot prices the instant they happen, because they do move, and the next day it could be something completely different. I want to go ahead and use credit if I don't have enough debit or cash to use at that time, to take full advantage of that, I want to say manipulated down spot price. And that's one of the recommendations I make.
All right. Yeah. So basically, it allows you to manipulate time. And, if people listen to our previous episodes, we talk about how time is a factor. And I mean, as you mentioned, like if somebody already has a big stack piled up, wouldn't it be great if we could take a future price, right? A high future price where we want to sell at. Let's say you wanted to sell at like $50 an ounce, and pull that into today, right? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could do that? Well, we can't do that, but what we can do is use credit to our advantage at a low point in order to acquire, which is basically what you mentioned right now. You're using credit. That means that you have money that you're going to make in the future. You just don't have it right now. There's a time value to money. Everybody understands that, right? So if I think that, and Silver Conundrum did a very good video. It was one of his first videos.
Yeah, I think it's a value and worth video. Was that the one?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that illustrates very well what you're talking about time and how we psychologically value silver at a certain price point. So if you think that the point where silver is priced at a particular time is worth spending your future earnings on, that's how you can justify using credit, even with interest or things like that. Now, are you guys ready to have your minds blown?
Hit me, I'm open.
Go for it.
All right, you guys are going to be dropping, you're going to be packing your bags and moving to Korea after I tell you this. In Korea, you can use a credit card with no interest, and you can divide the payments across 6 months. Up to 6 months, there's no interest. Beyond 6 months, then you do have to pay interest.
Who is this? What company is this?
Whoa, no, time out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all the credit cards work like that here. So not only can I take advantage of what you said, but I can do it with no interest.
I'm jealous.
For the amount of silver that I stacked using credit, I could have moved to South Korea and done it for cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Hey, my wife does not need to hear this video because she is going to kill me. Okay? So we just need to keep this on the down low.
No,
My
but
God.
what I want to point out is like the reason I tell you that is because all the preconceived notions that we have about what's okay and what's not okay and what we should do, what we shouldn't do, it has to be open to interpretation. And there are different rules to the games wherever you are, wherever you're playing. So, like, to me, I still apply the same rule, and I grew up in the United States, so I grew up with the interest using a credit card. If you don't pay it off within the next month, then you have to pay interest on it. So I'm conditioned to think like that, and I do not like being in debt. And we cannot foresee what the future holds for us. So while today we might think, okay, this silver is worth using some credit on, you could potentially get yourself into trouble if you overextend yourself, right? And now I want to say that because I just want to be transparent. We're not telling everybody to go max out all your credit cards and buy silver the next time it goes down by 2%. What I want to ask is, have there ever been a situation where you did feel like you overextended yourself or miscalculated using credit?
Yeah, there were a handful of times to where, the credit card cycle here in the United States, where we actually have to pay interest. Yes, it goes monthly. It is monthly, and there's a monthly demand to make what's required called the minimum payment. All right. So
Right.
if you get your credit system or your credit cards, maybe you have one. I only have one that I use. You get it to a certain point to where your credit balance is, high enough, it actually turns into a real monthly bill just to maintain the minimum, payment. And so what I had done is I had, made a panic purchase, and I call it a panic purchase because it's one of those ones where the inventories were dwindling fast. And that's another reason why you would use credit also, is if you didn't have access to the cash and you saw something that was very much needed for your stack with limited inventories and the inventories were dwindling right before your eyes, you want to pounce on that. So you go ahead and risk the leverage by using your credit card to lock that in at that price point. So I'd done that, and I pretty much at that point had maxed out my credit card with other expenditures and all that stuff. Well, what I didn't take into account was, I wouldn't have to pay for the items that I bought with the credit card, but coming up in the next week or two, I was going to have to settle the minimum payment on that credit card. Did the math and did the numbers and had all my bills mapped out and my pay that was coming in. I realized I didn't have enough for that minimum payment on the credit card. Okay. So I had to do something I hated very much, and I had to borrow money. Get ready, guys, from my ex-wife.
Oh,
Yes, that's how bad it got.
God, that hurts.
That's like the opposite
Gunshot.
direction.
And that's the thing. You walk into the place, and the Italian music's playing, the Linguini brothers are right there, they're ready to take you out. You better be ready to settle with that high interest that's going to come with a loan of that kind. And even though it wasn't that much, it was probably $400. It was $400 I wasn't going to be able to cover, and I just miscalculated. And that was a turning point for me. That was a wake-up call for me. And so at that point, I started being more responsible with the credit, not being so footloose and fancy free. But up until that point, things were going well, and I had bought more silver at $14 per ounce than I had ever bought in my entire stack. So, that was the one time it went bad, but for all the good that took place, you can look back and say it was justifiable. And to this day, we still communicate, me and my ex.
All right.
Good.
Well, that
Part is you're not swimming
is
with
a
the
very good point. I'm glad you mentioned the price point at what you got in at being $14 an ounce, because I think even with interest, that's definitely recouped and then a lot of its value. And I mean, I get that a lot of times when I buy like, fractional gold and I put an unboxing video, people, they say, oh, it's too expensive or, whatever for the premiums or even silver sometimes, because here's the downside to being in Korea. Okay. I cannot stack certain things like constitutional. And I pay a little bit more of a premium for certain things. So in the end, I think it all equals out. Even though I don't have interest on the credit card, I still have to pay higher premiums for Silver Eagles and stuff like that. So, but I mean, it has to do with the original point, which was about manipulating time, right? So yes, maybe today it seems like I'm paying a high spot price or I'm paying high premiums. But
Mhm.
if we look at if we believe what we've discussed in the previous two parts of this episode, that silver is going to increase in value, then it's absolutely worth it, right?
Absolutely.
The reason I asked about the overextension is just to illustrate right off the bat that it could go wrong, right? We're not sitting here trying to just preach that you should just go out and do whatever you want. So, but I think that the first point that you made was to have a plan and a standard and a price point at which you're going to go in to use credit and make it cost effective. And then the mistake illustrates that you have to calculate it and make sure that all the other things are taken care of.
Right.
So that's very good. So do you still utilize credit?
I don't too much anymore. Once I got my stack to where I wanted it, I became more of a debit purchaser and stuff. But the thing was, in between now and then, I experimented with other types of credit in the term in the sense of what do you call it, signature loans. I got a couple of those that were at a decent interest rate, about 8%, and then use those to buy when the price dipped back into the 14s. And so, and then put them on a longer term pay. So, I carry debt. I've told people as much and stuff. But in retrospect, if I had been thinking and I'd realized what was going on with the interest rates now, I would have done something like, try to purchase a home and then borrow against that interest rate the amount of the principal of the home plus some extra to buy silver with, and then just paid it all back at that lower interest rate if my finances would facilitate that. So there's a number of ways you can use credit. You can go through, credit loan, lending agencies of repute. Mine was through Discover, a card I already carried and stuff. And so I was able to acquire credit in the form of a loan there to buy silver at a low price point. And then, of course, if you're wise enough with mortgage practices, you can definitely acquire capital at a very low interest rate to acquire precious metals if you happen to be in the market for a home. The timing on that is very speculative. So yeah, just a journey with that. Going from using the credit card as a regular thing earlier on, and then kind of graduating into different types of credit because I wanted to keep the interest rates down and I have a longer term to deal with it instead of month to month. And then on to now to where I've kind of gotten to where I want to be, and now I'm trying to clean everything up using more debit.
Yeah, great. And I mean, I think that is also another reason why you could talk to a financial advisor if you're in those circumstances where you have a mortgage and things like that, and you have an objective for stacking or a goal, and you're interested in using credit or leveraging to get some silver right now. A financial advisor can help you out with that. So it really could work to your advantage to speak to somebody, an expert about those things. So. And it's good that you touched on the different types of credit because there is more than just a credit card out there that you can use to your advantage.
One of the things I want to add about credit cards real quick is that there are some credit systems out there or credit companies that will allow you to do introductory signups for their card, and they'll offer you something like 0% interest for a year, by the way. This is something that Silver Game of Thrones covered, and he actually took advantage of. So if you're one of these people that have carried a good credit score all this time and you've had some of these credit offers come through the mail, take the time to look at the ones that may be more reputable to see if that is one of the options that if you sign up for their card, there's no interest for a year, you can get whatever you want. And if it fits within your stacking, schedule, then to take advantage of that, because what's better than credit? Credit with no interest, of course, like in Korea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing to say to that too is a lot of the cards nowadays have a cash back option. So if you're making a big enough purchase, think of it, if you 5% is a pretty good chunk of change, depending on what you're doing. So if you look at that, combine the other, you're actually getting your silver at a lower rate as long as you get it paid off in time and you don't miss that deadline.
Good point.
A lot of people talk about I don't purchase from eBay just because where I'm at, but I know that a lot of people talk about like eBay bucks and all this kind of stuff, and it's a very similar concept. So the credit card companies, they want you. That's why you're getting all of those offers in the mail. They want you to use credit And I mean, the next point I was going to bring up is that you can use it to build up your credit score, which is very important, especially if you are thinking about going and borrowing money to buy a home, right, someday, because you need good credit in order to do that. So it's not just like something that we should just turn away from and think of evil and no, I'm never going to use my credit card and things like that. Like, you can make it work to your advantage. It's not as simple as debit, and it's not as simple as like, just forking over some cash currency for some real money, but it is a little bit more complicated. It does require some math, but it's absolutely worth it, I believe. And so I appreciate you shedding light on that. Silver Conundrum, do you have any experience or stories to share about using credit in order to acquire precious metals?
The only time I can say I've recently was when the price of silver dropped down. What was it? April, May time frame?
Oh my goodness.
Man, let me tell you what. I cashed out every signature loan before the other signature loans had time to be approved.
Holy cow.
So for example, you mentioned Discover. I had my wife go to Discover. I went to Discover, and I asked another lender at the same exact time, Lending Tree.
Yes.
And I was like, "Hey, what can you guys do for me?" They're like, "Oh, yeah." And they're like, they gave me a price. I'm like, "Can you have this done in the next 3 days?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "We can actually have it done in 48 hours."
Oh my goodness.
I went to Discover and asked them the exact same thing. They're like, "Yeah. Matter of fact, you're already pre-approved. All we got to do is just stamp the paperwork. Can you do an e-sign for me?" So they sent me an email. I e-signed it. The next day, the money was in the account.
I know that feeling.
My wife did the same thing. And before the other loan company actually knew that I took out another loan, so I was double dipping on my credit, which you can do if you're fast enough. I double dipped on my credit on Lending Tree also, and my wife did too.
Oh man.
So we got 4 loans for a very substantial amount when the price dropped, like almost, I think we bought it at
into the 11s.
Well, we didn't pay 11s. We bought, like, with the premiums, we were paying like 15 an ounce.
Okay, yeah.
And that's with the premiums and the shipping and the insurance for what we got, God knows.
But honestly,
it was worth it, because what we did was, I don't talk about this very often because it's not one of those things that you brag about when you stack silver, but we sold some of that to pay off those loans, and I still came out like 500-600 ounces for free.
Exactly.
And it's like, it didn't cost me anything.
Well,
and it's just like, and people don't realize that the credit aspect of that can do that for you. But the problem is, it's exactly what you guys both said. Timing is everything, and you have to be able to carry a balance until it works. Think about it, man. I'm carrying 4 major loans for what, 6 months?
Yep. Which is why you work 90 hours a week.
That's right. Seriously. That's exactly right.
True. Yeah.
That's why I told her, I was like, we're working all this overtime. I can afford the loans right now. And my wife knows we paid off our house with silver, for crying out loud. And we paid off medical bills with silver. So it's like, she knows. I am lucky my wife understands it. And it's like, let's do it again. And she's like, okay. I'm like, really? It's that easy with you? She goes, let's do it. I was like, yes.
Yeah, see, and that's I actually, when I look back on my old relationship, my ex, she says that silver was the thing that split us apart, and it wasn't that. It was that she was just a little too apprehensive about my aggressive, investing style, and I didn't realize that till later. It became too much for her, and I understand that. But like you were saying, using those different credit types, to acquire at what you call a low price point, it allows you to do a number of things once we get these bigger jumps. Like, for example, a lot of the stuff I purchased, during that time for that, lower price in the 14s, 15s, this sort of thing, I've actually used some of that silver here in recent months. In July, when we had the big jump to 29, I did sell some silver, and I sold some of that silver to pay off some of the most toxic debt that came from those activities and stuff. And so you look at that. Yeah, I paid some interest during that time, but when you look at the amount of premium or yield that I had generated, I was able to, pay that back, for 75 cents on a dollar, probably 66 cents on a dollar, this sort of thing. And so, that's kind of the way you got to look at it. Not only that, but you need to keep your finger on the pulse of the language and the attitude of the credit system. The credit system has gotten so much looser than when we were kids. You guys remember, you had to provide your birth certificate and all this crazy stuff, and you had to have 5 people vouch for you just to get a credit card, and it only had like a $400 limit on it.
Like church every Sunday, preacher baptized you. Yep, we trust you. You're good now.
Yeah, just to get approved. But nowadays, you can just, are you breathing? Yeah, okay, cool. $25,000 limit. Here you go for it.
That's it.
But it's going to be 20%.
Yep. And see, with us, we were lucky. Our interest rate was through LendingTree was like 13%, and through Discover, I can't remember if mine was 9. I'm gonna say mine was 9%, and my wife might have been like 8.5% or something.
Right.
Because she was picking on me because hers was better than mine. I was like, I hate you, woman. Oh! But I mean, that's just the way it is. And when you look at what you've talked about before, the price of silver going up, paying off your debts if you cash it out. And by the way, just so you guys know, if you cash out more than $10,000 of silver at a time, you do have to perform and you will pay taxes, just so you know. I found out almost the hard way a couple times. And this time, if my buddy wouldn't have because I was jumping as fast as I could, and my buddy at the store was like, hey man, come in every couple hours and just bring it to me. And I was like, okay. And this way he can make new receipts, new everything. And that's how you have to do it. Do not take more than $10,000 of silver to anyone. You will pay taxes. Just so y'all know.
Okay.
No, that's important. That's important because we always talk about, we talk about the entry points, but we also have to ultimately keep in mind the exit points. So that's a very good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, because people don't realize that. And it's just one of those scary things. It's like, I expect it because no one ever really talks about it. All you ever hear about is stack, sell all amounts. But when you're selling $10,000, $20,000 at a time, as you yourself already knows, man, you got to do it smart. You got to $9,999 tax free. You throw that extra dollar, you're paying taxes, and it's think about it, man. It's like 20. I think it's 28%. That's outrageous.
That is confiscatory. Is scary. It's scary stuff. And there's no profit in that. Believe me.
That's right. It defeats the whole purpose of the stack. So that's the whole point I'm trying to say. If you do it, be smart. Ask what's going on. If you have an advisor, talk to them. They'll tell you the tax rules because that's what mine did.
Yeah.
And guys, 5150 is right. Still, credit can be used perfectly if it's used the right way, and as long as you don't let your interest rates overrun the price of the silver's uprun, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it is a very effective tool, no doubt about it.
It sounds like you really have to, thread the needle in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So I think that for me personally, if I was going to try to, flip something or whatever, then I would probably do it either in the paper market or with a different asset class. So I wouldn't personally go into it with trying to flip, but if you use credit, like you said, use that word leverage, right? Which means making your more bang for your buck. That's one way you could think about it, in simple terms. Being able to make a harder punch at the time, then absolutely I would do that. Because this, for me personally, precious metals are the long game. It's in the long term. So it's kind of similar to what you mentioned earlier about your retirement pension, that you're only allowed a certain number of transactions in a specific time period. And so you kind of need to be sure if you're going to do something. And I would say that this whole conversation about how to use credit in the United States, I would think about it in the same vein. Really, you've got to have your plan already set. And it's like a break this glass in case spot price goes to this point, and like you've got to have your whole strategy lined up and set out so that there would not be any real. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but like if you have your whole plan, set out, step 1, step 2, step 3, right? Like that would be the way I would say that, would be the smart way, the safer way in order to use credit, because it is a bit of a risk because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So, but absolutely, it is a tool. It's a tool that you can use to your advantage, and it's a tool that you can help yourself with in order to get other things in the future. So, do you have any other ways that you use to acquire precious metals? Like for me, for example, I have a second job, and I also take on freelance projects, temporary, so that way I can generate some extra income in order to, get more financial assets. So what about you? Do you have other methods that you use to increase the amount of silver that you can buy?
Absolutely. I ran the whole gamut, like a Silver Conundrum. I've worked extended hours, working where I am. There are plenty of people that do not want to work. And I appreciate my coworkers out there because they've probably put more metal in my stack than any other resource. These people that don't want to work the weekends, they don't want to work the holidays. Oh, I got it. Really? You going to cover that? I got it covered, man. What, time and a half, double time and a half? You betcha, I'm there. And so people, they say, well, gosh, man, you're such an animal, you're a machine and stuff. Well, not only was I doing that, but at one point, if you guys saw some of my early videos, I actually was doing a janitorial job on top of the extended hours I was doing at the regular job, which was at the same institution.
Everything else.
Yeah. And so, yes, all these things. And, there was a point where I used to work my 60-hour-a-week driving job, then do a 4-hour nights or 20-hour-a-week housekeeping job at the same institution at a federal facility. And then I would help a friend of mine who was also a federal driver work at his fencing business on the weekend. And the one story I always tell some of my subscribers is the day that I bought my 10-ounce APMEX round. And if you guys have never seen these, it's because they weren't out forever. They were out a while back. And what I'd done was, I think at the time, spot price was probably $21 or $22. I went out there and I went with a friend and I worked on a fence in the middle of summer in California. And if you guys, have an idea how hot it can get, it was in the hundreds that day. Damn. And I put in a total of 7 hours one day and then 8 hours the next day. I was making $15 an hour. It's $225 cash I got for that job. And I went, before I even got in the shower on that Sunday, when I was done, I went to the computer, I went on to APMEX, and I bought that 10-ounce round for $228. Just added some extra to get the round. But that goes to show you that you can't be fickle or finicky, as to how you try to apply your stack, because that 10-ounce round now, if you try to get it, probably retails for somewhere in the neighborhood of close to $400 because you can't get it. But even in the Bible, in ancient times, these people they're working 12 hours a day in the vineyards, 12 hours a day as gladiators. They're doing all this crazy way to work, and they were doing it for 1/10 of an ounce of silver. So for that 15 hours of work, I stole, in biblical terms, something on the order of 100 days of hard human labor. So when you think in that context, how could you not do everything you could to acquire silver? So yes, the credit, the extra jobs, the extra hours at work, I've done it all. And I've actually had to pull back a little bit. Once I started doing a YouTube channel more, I looked at my stack and said, I'm doing pretty good here. And I think it's more important that we get more people in the community. I am kind of tired anyway. And so I backed off at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I think it was Warren Buffett who said that, like, if you don't find a way to make money when you sleep, then you're going to be working until you die or something like that. And look, I don't know about making money while you sleep, but you do have to think about, alternative ways other than just, all of us, we work very hard. I think all stackers work really hard, put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And but if you can find some alternative ways like credit, or I know one of the biggest channels, Silver Dragons, he talks about how he funded some of his first purchases by turning in aluminum tin cans and for the 5 cents or 10 cents or whatever. And I used to do that too when I lived in California. I used to recycle glass and plastic and aluminum cans. You take it down there, you weigh it, and they cut you a little check right there. So I mean, it can be worth it. I mean,
Right.
I would trade basically trash for an ounce of silver for sure. You know what I mean? So absolutely, finding other ways to generate income can help. Another revenue stream. I know Silver Joker used to have a vending machine business as well. He used to talk about that. I have some stocks that pay dividends, and just one of them, there's one of them right now where I got it up to the point where I could pretty much get like 1 or 2 ounces of silver per month just off of that right there.
Nice.
So thinking creatively, every ounce counts over the long term. You're able to build and stack. It really does add up in the long run. And whatever you can do to, we talked about like the using credit at like this very specific time to make a huge acquisition. And if you can do that, that's awesome. That's great. More power to you, and good luck with that. And also, if there's something you can do where like a dividend paying stock or a small, vending machine business or whatever, where it's like this slow, steady stream, I mean, that is going to add up after time. There's a kind of a popular challenge right now going on in the YouTube stacking community, the $10 a week challenge, where people are picking up junk silver and stuff like that. It's the same concept. You pick up a small amount consistently, and over time it adds up, guys. And what we've talked about in this episode, these different parts of this episode, that is talking about paying dividends. It is going to be huge.
It's going to be amazing.
It really is. I mean, just think about it. When I think about the price of gold and the price of platinum and the price of rhodium and everything else, it doesn't even make sense where silver is priced at right now.
It doesn't. In fact, when you think about it, the language itself is kind of misleading, because silver is considered a precious metal and an industrial metal. But the precious metal side of it, actually, as a price point, it is more closely related to copper, which is a base metal, than to gold. And so in terms of price point, which is why it's an excellent investment to get into. So there has to be a correction with that. So, either silver is a precious metal or it's not. If it's a precious metal, then it needs to be priced more like its noble cousins. And if it's not a precious metal and it's just a base metal, then it must mean there's an unlimited amount, and just go ahead and let me get as much as I can, for, $10, this sort of thing. But that's not the case. We know that's not the case. It has plenty of uses. It has a very rich history as money. And, it is limited. It is finite.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And then that's why, like, we talk about credit, we talk about all these different ways that you can acquire. And look, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. Like I said, like the concept of using credit in order to get more silver, it's simple to understand, but actually doing it might not be that easy, but it's worth it, guys, because of the potential that silver has, that we all believe is going to be realized in the future, in the near future, within our lifetimes. Absolutely, for sure.
I really believe it will be in our lifetimes, man. It doesn't have a choice to. Look what it's gone through in just the last 2 years alone.
Yes.
Guys, I think next year we're going to be doing a joint podcast where we're going to be talking about, the things we're going to change because the price is going to be so much better than it is now. The performance is going to be something akin to a cryptocurrency rather than, say, a commodity.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. And the thing is, in 1 year from today, I'm marking it on my calendar. I want to see where we're at.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, just to tie the bow on that, to wrap it up, why are cryptocurrencies, one of the main things that people point to as to why they're going to be so valuable is because they're limited, they're finite, and they always compare it to gold, silver, other precious metals. So, I mean, I think that we definitely should have another podcast at a point where we can look back and let's see what our track record is. I'm confident to say that right now. But guys, it has been just an honor and a pleasure. And I mean, this is definitely got to be one of the best episodes ever I can say that for the previous episodes and
Okay.
the episodes going into the future. Silver 5150, we just have to thank you so much. Like you said, the Silvercast wouldn't exist without you. And we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and to do all the amazing work that you do on your channel. And I just really have to thank you so much for that.
You're absolutely welcome, man. You're absolutely welcome. You guys, I listen to you too. I think your channels are outstanding. And this is all the effort we're trying to do for the silver community. I'm glad that I was able to contribute in the way I've been able to contribute. And if you would indulge me, I'd like to remind all your listeners out there and any new listeners there that your stack is not whack. Don't let anybody tell you different. And that just 15 ounces to your name keeps you 99% ahead of the game.
You
Oh,
got
man.
here, 15 ounces.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. And with that, thank you, everybody, for listening to us. And we will catch you all in the next one.
Later, everyone.
Thanks for having me.